So for this creative inquiry, I decided to choose a set of Illustrator and Photoshop tutorials that deal specifically with type graphics. Before I begin showcasing the main takeaways I learned, I would like to give a shout out to my Romanian brother and graphic design shaman, Andre Marius. He was responsible for creating the majority of the tutorials that I ended up following to create these graphics. So keep doing what you're doing, buddy. So the first tutorial that I would like to go over is the one called How to Create a Christmas Knitted Pattern. Making this graphic really, helped my knowledge of making patterns and brushes. And if you see the little kind of heart-shaped little things, that was the pattern, and I ended up taking those to the fill, changing the blur, changing the color, making that a brush, and then I was able to make the rest of the graphic with that. And a little bit of a side note, making this did crash my computer 2 times, almost a 3rd time. So it was a lot of small vector images that went into that one, which is something that I didn't really know how to do before starting that, so it was very helpful. The next one I'm going to talk about is the neon sign effect. And personally, I did not know you could make multiple fills in an object in Illustrator before this tutorial. However, this changed when brother Andre had me making like 10 fills for one piece of text, which I thought was excessive, but it really does make a difference. It nicely creates that glowing effect that you see. And each fill had a various color opacity with its own assigned effects, such as like a glow or drop shadow. And in addition, this tutorial also really showed me how to change the color of a raster image via overlays and gradients. Like the brick background on the back of that, it did not look like that before, and that's something that I wasn't very good at. So it's definitely going to be using that in the future. Then as for the pastel tutorial, I followed it, and it was pretty eye-opening for me, really, because I dare I say it was game-changing, because in the past, like, I've used gradients, but I've never gone past like 2 colors for a gradient, and I just use like the basic gradient templates that they had. But he really, in this tutorial, is kind of like going through how to use a freeform gradient, how to blend more than 2 colors together, and I feel like that's something that's going to be very helpful in the future if I were to make graphics with text and I needed a visually appealing background. It was definitely, like, all this stuff is it's good stuff. And the last thing I'm gonna talk about in this lovely video would be it's in relation to the how to make a 3D text effect tutorial. And I know Illustrator recently had a big update with its 3D objects and like 3D tools. So it was cool for me to learn how to use some of these, because in the past I have really just not touched on that at all. I've done mostly just 2D graphics. But yeah, it really, like, the main thing that this graphic tutorial focused on was the bevel tool and the extrude tools within the 3D repertoire of Illustrator. And honestly, when I was doing it, I was I messed it up like a lot. So it's not something I would have been able to figure out on my own, in my opinion. So doing this tutorial was incredibly helpful in that sense. Definitely, but that's all I'm going to say for this video. But there is a lot more enlightening explanations at the bottom of this video on this Adobe Spark website. And side note, if you're wondering how I created this video in Premiere, I watched a tutorial, so never stops, man. It's constant. But yeah, thank you.